So let's go ahead and see what's been going on in Southeast Asia. Okay, so as it says here on the caption, when you come to Thailand and rent a motorbike, when you've never ridden one before, this is what happens. Same thing in the Philippines, and as I was watching this, now I don't know this, of course, but it would be really ironic if these women had ever said anything like, oh, we don't need a man. Because it's men who are going to pull that motorcycle out of the ravine that they ran it off into on the side of the road. And as you'll see here in a second, it's going to be a man that ends up helping them just to even get up back on the main road again. So, if you really don't have any experience with a scooter, I don't know how you just end up driving it right off. Literally just right off the road. Even for a beginner, that just seems kind of hard. Anyways, so there they are, right off the side of the road into the bush. If you don't know how to ride a bike, learn under a controlled situation. Don't just go to Thailand and end up like this. Now, here's kind of a positive note for in Japan. This is, an incident where a guy is saying, I was in Tokyo recently, and by the way, this is not abnormal. I have had buddies of mine who live in Japan with similar stories just like this. I was in Tokyo recently on a business trip. I accidentally left my brand new MacBook on a park bench in Tokyo. I realized it 3 hours later. I sprinted back, panic mode, fully engaged, assuming it was gone forever. It wasn't there. I asked a nearby shopkeeper and he pointed to the bench. Someone had placed my laptop inside a plastic grocery bag and taped it to the bench so it wouldn't get wet in the drizzle. They didn't take it, they protected it. Culture is what you do when no one is watching. This is not the first time I've heard of a story like this. The last time I'd heard about it, it was a guy that had left his wallet at the bar. Came back, and they had it right there behind the bar. And then there was, there's a comment here from Wesley Smith. I can confirm this. The funniest one is when my daughter left her earbuds in a restaurant. One of the staff was running down the sidewalk yelling at us, scared the crap out of me. And it's a culture that is contagious. I found a phone left on a train seat, gave it to the conductor, found a wallet laying on the sidewalk, gave it to the nearest train station gate personnel. I can't say I would be doing that in the States. So I don't know what he meant by the last comment there. But it's just a whole different culture. And there's, again, like I mentioned in the last episode, there's some good and some strange about it. But there are cultures that are not as, let's just say, crazy as some of the stuff you see in the major news there going on in Minneapolis and other places. Meanwhile, the crackdown continues. This is from the Sunstar Cebu site on Facebook. Crackdown on drugs over at Bohol. Operatives of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, Bohol, along with the Taoist Police and Bohol Maritime Police, raided a drug den in Barangay Katarman, Taoist, Bohol, on Thursday, February 5th. So this was just yesterday, day of recording. Led to the arrest of 4 individuals, including a father and son duo, family business, allegedly running the operation. Authorities seized shabu. Now, shabu's, I believe, methamphetamine here in the Philippines. That's what they call it. The seized shabu worth over 108,000 pesos. Maybe one of you can convert that to USD. And drug paraphernalia. The suspects are now in police custody as cases are being prepared for filing in court. And then you got these 3 suspects. There's the guy in the red here, this guy here, and this guy here. Allegedly, they have now been arrested as suspects. All suspects were suspected in the killing of a police staff sergeant whose remains were found in a septic tank. Now, the thing to keep in mind that I have observed over the years, now coming up on 14 years living here in the Philippines, yes, you're going to see articles, just as you would in any country, about murder and things like that. Now, with the murders over the years, what I've noticed is the majority of murders revolve around 3 motives. One is the love triangle, the usual, jealousy, all that, hurt feelings, whatever. And then you got the second motive, which is money. It could be a real estate a deal that went south, or even a motorcycle, sale of a motorcycle, a car. Because, what we might consider, oh, this is only 7,000 US dollars, is a whole lot of pesos to the average person that you're doing business with. So they may decide to kick it up a few notches, whereas we wouldn't. And then the third one has to do usually with a personal grudge. In this case, I would kind of put this in that category. These three guys allegedly decided to kill the guy, and it wasn't over romance, it wasn't over money. It was a personal grudge. So looking at those three motives, if you're an expat living in the Philippines, if you can stay away from those kind of things, a sketchy romance with a woman that might be married, living with her husband, or her husband lives in the neighborhood, that kind of thing. And I know there's no way to be perfectly safe. She may lie to you. She may say her husband is on another island. She hasn't seen him in years, even though she knows damn well he lives down the block. You could get lied to, So there is no foolproof way. If you want a foolproof way to dodge any of these situations, just stay in your house and lock the door. And then financial, I've read so many times where somebody goes in good faith to buy a piece of property. Next thing you know, somebody's not signing the documents they should be signing, or they don't even own the property and they're selling it to you. And then when you want your money back, well, things get pretty difficult. So if you are an expat and you're pretty much, living your life, as conservative as possible, what doesn't seem to happen here, I can't even remember any time that it's happened in 13 years, is where you come out of the grocery store and there's some lunatic with a gun just shooting random people. And maybe somebody can find that in the news somewhere, but it doesn't happen very often, if it's ever happened at all, in the Philippines. Now, in Los Angeles, you could just be putting your keys in your car at the parking lot and some idiot will shoot you just to take your car. People have debated this for years. Are you safer in the Philippines? Are you safer in your home country? There's a case for both sides, but really at the end of the day, you can't go into any society with any guarantees. I would say your odds of getting into these kind of problems in Japan or Singapore or South Korea are much lower. And places like Colombia, Juarez, Mexico, downtown Manila at 2 a.m, your odds are pretty bad. Stay away from sketchy situations with romance, money. If you're going to do anything involving a lot of money, anything like, say, over, $3,000, get an attorney involved. They're not very expensive in the Philippines. Get an attorney involved who's going to act as a trust for the money being exchanged, for the titles being provided, everything signed on the dotted line. Because if you're just doing it directly and there is no uninvolved third party acting as a trustee, well, anything can go south. And at least if you have an attorney involved, that switch between title and money, he's going to have both. And he's going to hand them off when they're both in there and everything is, all cool. So that's my only recommendation when it comes to money. Get an attorney involved. Let him handle the exchange. Okay, now we got this guy. Let's see, where is he? He's over in, I believe, Thailand? Anyway, yeah, Thailand. But it all started here. He took off his shirt, challenged, I guess, the guy over on the right wearing the white shirt, that guy. I guess they got into it. And he's still provoking the guy. So this is the kind of thing you don't want to do unless you want to ride in the back of the silver truck there in Thailand. Okay, getting back to things you don't want to do in Thailand or anywhere else. Don't pick a fight with a guy that's like 1.5 feet taller than you, especially if you really don't have some solid fighting skills. So now this guy in the red, he's laid out. If he's lucky, nobody's going to come by and steal his wallet, steal his phone. Who knows how long he's going to lay out there in the road till he wakes up. But, it's just better to walk away. Walk away. Unless your life is in danger and you have nowhere to go to, okay, well then, it's all bets are off. Take the guy out best you can. But not everybody is trained to fight. Not everybody's going to end up against an opponent of same or smaller size. So as you can see here, getting emotional and letting your emotions make your decisions, yeah, you end up face down in the asphalt. Well, meanwhile, inflation and the economy are not doing this guy any favors. Japanese man with 4 wives and 2 girlfriends, seeking to have 54 children, now lives out of his car after financial collapse. And apparently this guy was a YouTuber. Those vloggers are a strange bunch, I tell you. Japan's most famous polygamous YouTuber suffers total family collapse after wives leave him. Oh, so that's not good. Or maybe it is. The self-proclaimed polygamous YouTuber Ryuta Watanabe has officially announced that his controversial family structure has collapsed. After years of promoting a lifestyle with multiple wives, the dream ended when 2 of his partners left him. The first and third wives reportedly fled to their parents' homes, taking their 4 children with them. Watanabe confessed that his family fell apart due to extreme financial struggles and fundamental disagreements over his lifestyle, you think. He revealed that he currently has only about 11,000 yen left in his total bank savings account. Again, I have no idea how much that is. Maybe one of you could convert it into US dollars or pesos or euros. The YouTuber is now living in a car with his remaining second wife, who has no children. Despite the total destruction of his previous home life, Watanabe is already planning a comeback. He recently announced a new wife audition to find more partners to join his nomadic car life, which will not be very nomadic once his car breaks down, because then, it doesn't sound like he's got a whole lot of money to be fixing his car. Why am I not surprised that this whole thing crashed and burned? Now, there have been guys, that I remember from the past in the news, guys that, had a whole bunch of wives, and they weren't Muslim. It wasn't for religious reasons. They just got it in their head. They wanted to be essentially like some kind of, kind of like a cult leader, and just married all these women and had all these kids and whatever. Now, those guys didn't have the same outcome as this guy, because those guys had all the women working. They were either working, pulling in income, and the ones that weren't, they had some kind of huge farm, and they were out there planting vegetables and raising kids and sheep and whatever. Those guys had it a little bit more organized. But here's the thing. This is what gets me every time I read about one of these polygamy guys, is most guys, the first thing they think of is, oh, well, if you've got 4, 5, 6 different wives, well, then you've got all this variety in the bedroom just right there for the taking. Well, what you also got is 4 or 5 women that you got to manage. They're going to be bickering with each other. And, like I even wrote in a comment there, it's a full-time job just managing one woman, okay? Why any guy would think he's going to ever have any peace and quiet with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wives? I don't understand that. And here's the thing. It's completely unnecessary. I mean, if you're living in the Philippines, Thailand, much of Southeast Asia, you can arrange it where you have all this variety. And you're not committed to those 5. It's like you can swap and take them in and out and, refresh the stable and whatnot. There's plenty of guys I know that have done that and are still doing it, and they're not married to any of them. So I don't know why in the world anybody would be crazy enough to marry more than one woman at the same time. Now, this is not Vitaly. This is 2 other Russian guys that I kind of sort of briefly mentioned they were looking for in the last episode. 2 Russian nationals transferred to prison under heavy security. Both suspects pled not guilty and refused to cooperate with investigators. Yeah, they got these guys on CCTV. That's how they kind of tracked them down. Then they ended up finding them with, there was a metal saw was also discovered near the burial sites. Pretty gruesome. But, it's just, you don't want to be around shady characters. Imagine, you're there on the side of in some busy part of town, and you're just getting yourself a pizza, and you're happy-go-lucky, and then along come these 2 Russian guys. You don't know them. You don't know what they're up to, And, they start getting friendly, whatever. You just have to be really careful. People you don't know are strangers. Don't go telling them where you live. that. Don't tell them how much money you're retired on. Nothing. I've said this before, because there's guys like this, that are out there. And after a couple of drinks and you've said way too much, they may go and talk amongst themselves and go, hey, we could get ourselves out of a bind. We need some money, and this guy's got some. And he trusts us, so let's work something to our advantage. So I'm just saying, don't be paranoid, but, use some common sense. Don't go trusting total strangers. Now, I know that's a bit of downer news for Thailand, but, just to remind you, there are some beautiful places to go and visit in Thailand, and not all of it. The only reason for going there is not just to go to Pattaya. It's, there's plenty of nice beaches and wonderful places to go visit as well. Here's a little bit more bright news. As you can see here, again, this is from the Sunstar Cebu. Filipinos rescued from human trafficking. Close to 200 Filipinos who fell victim to human trafficking in Cambodia have been safely returned home on Thursday, February 5th. Now, as some of you may or may not know, Philippines has this, what they call like an offloading policy. It's not a law, it's a policy. Where essentially Philippine citizens, especially if they're female, they're young, but in general, Filipinos who don't have a travel history, don't have a lot of money to return home if something goes wrong. It's been criticized a lot, this policy, but in the other side of the argument, I can see how this is what they're trying to prevent. Is Filipinos that get lured supposedly with a job offer in another country, like say Cambodia, and then when they get there, next thing you know, they're saying, oh, we need your passport so we can scan it for our records, whatever, and then they don't get their passport back. And now they're basically being held hostage, to do whatever it is that these, human trafficking people want done. So, glad to see that a bunch of them did finally make their way back home. Now, this is there in Pattaya. Again, just another reminder about riding a motorbike. You don't want to be out there at night, get into this kind of a mess, not even know anybody in the country to help you out. Now, this guy here, 55-year-old American man, killed in this motorbike accident. But if he had been fortunate enough to just find himself in the hospital, again, if you're in another country and you don't know anybody there, yeah, it can really look bad even if you do survive. Now, I'm guessing this is in Thailand, and, you would think the guy with the helmet had the advantage. Actually, it's a bit of a disadvantage. If they grab the helmet, well, now they can jerk you all over the place. But that's not what happened in this case, as you saw. The one guy, bam, just kind of side clocks him on the helmet, enough to knock the helmet off and disorient the guy, even knock his sandal off. I don't know what the altercation was about, but again, just the kind of thing you don't want to be a part of in another country. Bam, down he goes. Well, this kind of sucked for this guy. Foreigner wins lottery, then learns he was sold old tickets. So imagine you go to buy some lottery tickets, you pick your numbers out, you think you won, but the person you bought the tickets from made a mistake. They put your numbers on last week's lottery. So you were done and dead in the water the moment you walked away. And that's what happened to this guy. An old lottery tickets mix-up left a foreign man shocked and disappointed after he thought he'd won. On February 3rd, reporters learned that a foreign man had matched the last two digits, 48, on two lottery tickets from the February 1 draw. The number was 829048. However, when he went to the bank, essentially to go claim his prize, he was told that the tickets were not valid. They were from the previous January 17th draw, not the February 1st draw that he thought he had put the numbers on. Kind of goes into a little bit more detail, but basically he didn't get his money. That's it. Now, I was in Vietnam for a year, 2019, and I bought lottery tickets not with the idea that I was going to win anything. You don't really see a lot of beggars in Vietnam. At least I didn't, and I was in 4 different cities, and including Saigon primarily. And you really don't see a whole lot of beggars. But what you do see, they're selling these lottery tickets up and down the street. And so I would buy the ticket, more like, kind of like a charitable donation. In fact, a lot of times I just threw the tickets away when I got home. Now, if you're going to play the lottery ticket with the idea of actually claiming a prize if you win one, it would be good to get on ChatGPT for that country and find out if you can even claim it as a foreign national. But definitely, if you're going to buy a lottery ticket in, say, Vietnam or whatever, either buy it with the intention that it's kind of like you're giving it as a charitable donation, or if you really think you're going to claim the prize if you win, find out if you can even do that as a foreigner. So now this is kind of interesting from a cultural, societal observation standpoint. Japan to consider criminalizing prostitution clients. Japan moves to finally punish the male customers in major prostitution law overhaul. The Japanese Minister of Justice has officially begun reviewing the Prostitution Prevention Act of 1956. So, wow, it's been a long time since they reviewed this. Under the current outdated law, only the individuals selling sex face legal penalties for solicitation. So only the women were being charged, unless it's a guy out there prostituting himself. But basically, the customer wasn't going to face any legal charges all this time. Authorities are now planning to include the buyers of sex under these criminal punishment provisions. A new committee of experts will be established in February to finalize this. Again, you can read the whole thing here. So, I don't know. I just find it interesting that all this time, they only charged one party. Because if she's doing something wrong, then the guy who was the other half of that transaction, you would think by default, he's doing something wrong too. So imagine if there was an arrangement in the law system where if you're selling drugs, you're going to go to prison. But if you're buying drugs from an illegal drug dealer, you're not going to go to prison. See, that just seems really weird. So anyways, looks like they're looking at kind of evening the score there. And finally, I thought this one was kind of funny. Let's see. Foreign tourists mistake a funeral, an outdoor funeral like reception. Foreigners mistake funeral for a food court and were welcomed with Thai food. I used to have a catering business for about 6 years there in California. And we were commissioned and contracted to, do parties of all sizes. Our minimum was 100 people, but we did like up to 3,000. I think 3,500 was our biggest event. And it would be everything. It would be weddings, baptismos, anniversaries, you name it. And a lot of these were like big Mexican parties there in Southern California. And, there's so many people. And it's like you just sort of drift in. I mean, I could see how if somebody just kind of walked in, and even if they weren't Mexican, or like these guys, they're obviously not, Thai. People just assume, they know somebody, and they just hand them a plate. And so, yeah, these guys, apparently it all came out in the open. But yeah, nonetheless, credit to this Thai family, despite the misunderstanding, they went ahead and they welcomed them, gave them some food and stuff. And so it all worked out okay. That's about it for today. And we'll see what other kind of craziness comes up here in a couple more days. Again, if you want, now this is just, again, tip of the iceberg. There's so many other articles here. I pretty much update it every single day. You can go to the link. It's in the description and also in the top comment at Facebook. You just do a search if you want, Expats in Asia News and Chat. That'll take you there as well, but the link is in there. So, yeah, we'll see how things go in the next few days. Love to hear your thoughts and comments, and see you there in the comment section.